2, and I call the meeting to order. Has everybody looked at the previous minutes? Do I have a motion to accept?
I'll make a motion to accept
Second.
the last minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The motion's passed, we accept the minutes. Megan?
We can start our work session. I'd like to review our 2018 Board of Health meeting schedule. It hasn't changed since we talked about it last month. We're aware that Cynthia may have a date.
Yeah.
It's confirmed for June 12th. You won't be
Right.
available. Okay.
Correct.
And what's the meeting time in April?
In April, they're all start at 6:30. And April meeting date is April 10th. It's a Tuesday.
Okay, I won't be here for that. 'Cause
Okay.
my daughter's expecting the 12th.
Okay.
And we did decide that the meetings are going to be Tuesday.
Yes, selectmen meet on Monday.
Yeah.
Will you be here in April?
April sounds great.
So we'll keep it the same until, just make sure we have a quorum, is that?
Right, come April, if we have a quorum issue, we can postpone, and come June, if we have a quorum issue, we can postpone. So you'll need to make a vote on that. You guys need to vote on that.
I thought
Oh.
we did.
I'll
I
make a
did.
motion that we accept the
Didn't
calendar for 2018 as stated.
Second.
Sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
The schedule's passed.
Will you send us a electronic version? Because I thought we were going to make some changes, I think I dumped mine from last meeting.
Sure, and we actually printed these up just in case we did, so if you want to take one and pass along, but we'll send it electronically too.
Thank you.
I'll post it on your fridge.
You don't lose it and it doesn't get dirty. It's
That's
perfect.
nice. Can feel it.
The next thing we have on our agenda is a discussion on 35 Chatham Road, Resilient Family Farm. In October, we had a hearing regarding the cease and desist order to remove the manure compost pile from the property. An appeal was scheduled. Appeal was made by the Viprinos, and the appeal was scheduled for November 29th. I went out on the 28th, which was just about 2 weeks ago, to prepare for the appeal hearing. I met Mr. and Mrs. Viprino as well as their attorney, Ben Zender. Went to the site and saw that the pile was smaller than it had been before, and there was no odor and no flies. I spoke with Sean Bowen from the Department of Agriculture, who had also been to the site, and we both agreed that this compost/manure had been composted. It's been to the final stages of compost, and it's now usable topsoil. I do realize that it's October, November, December. There's weather depends on flies and odor. However, it's been completely turned in and there wasn't any visible manure. And on top of that, he has gotten rid of horses on the property. The Board of Health has jurisdiction over manure management only when there are horses involved, because we have stable regulations. We don't regulate manure from any other farm animal. So the reason why we were involved in his manure management plan was because of the stable permit, which no longer is valid. He does not have any horses there. So given the fact that we can't regulate a manure management plan because there aren't any horses on the site. We can't order the pile covered or moved. The question comes to whether it's a public health nuisance right now. When I visited the site, there was no rats, no flies, no odor. My opinion is that there's not a public health nuisance right now. So, there were no piglets that I'm aware of.
Still inside too, maybe?
Probably still cooking. So that's, right now the status of the farm is there's no piggery, there's no stable. We don't have any way to regulate their manure. A public health nuisance, farms are exempt from many public health laws because of the farming laws. So even though there's an odor in the summer, that is considered part of normal farming practices. So we would need some strong ammunition in order to regulate because of an odor. I did talk with town council today about this, and gave her my site assessment, and she confirms that there really isn't any way that I could stand up in court and say, uphold this order because this is a terrible public health nuisance. She didn't say that she wouldn't go to court. That is something, if that's really what we're here to decide today. Do you want to uphold the order and I'll go to court on January 10th and see what the judge has to say, or do you want to withdraw the order?
I would personally be comfortable with vacating the order. But given the facts,
You'd be comfortable with it or without it? With it.
With the order, keeping
with
it?
vacating.
Oh, vacate, okay. So would I. I think we should drop.
I have a question, Larry. A question, since if this is under a discussion and not new business and it wasn't posted, right? Can we vote?
This was posted.
But does it have to be under, I don't know, I'm just asking. It's okay?
It's not, well, it's not new business, and it was posted and advertised.
It's okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, just double
It's on
checking.
the agenda, it's reasonably assumed that
Okay.
there'll be an action.
I just wanted to make sure, thank you. Excuse me. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Should we make a motion, or we
Well-
haven't heard from?
No, I heard what the health director's summation was. I don't have any questions at this point.
So do I hear a vote?
I'll make a motion that we drop the case. Is that, just- what do I call it, case?
Withdraw the order to.
Withdraw the order.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Against? We'll drop the case.
Okay, I'll let town council know. All right, so we still have about 20 minutes before new business, so if you'd like, I can go into,
Can I bring up old business for a second?
sure.
Okay, basically, it's very minor. It's that I did get the information that I passed on to several people, including yourself, about a grant opportunity for fresh, locally grown agriculture grant. The grant is under the Mass Food Trust. It's $1 million in state money to promote local rural production and sale of healthy agricultural, basically fruit and vegetables. So I don't know if anybody's applying for it. It's a very quick deadline. It's January 8th. But I sent it to the food pantry, I sent it to you, I sent it to Kathy T. Han was very interested in this. I think that's 3 or 4 people, but I haven't heard back if anybody, if it's even appropriate for any of those groups to apply. But I said at the last meeting that I would try to find either possible grant opportunities and/or resources that we could post on the website.
Okay,
Good,
Does the
great.
Farm Bureau know about it?
Oh, yeah.
the Farm Bureau
Named
does.
departments in this.
Well, we can post it on our website as a opportunity. I did read through it. The food pantry does have some land that they do farming on, so it would seem appropriate for them to go forward. But I do know that the food pantry is a larger entity than just Harwich, so they may have to run it up the chain.
And I didn't know if some of the potential applicants, the categories, having lived here a long time, I didn't know who, in fact, might be interested. That's when I shared it. I said, share it with people who might be interested or were eligible to apply.
And it looked like the town was not eligible to apply,
Yeah, I didn't-
because we didn't have some kind of financial way to
Manage the whole thing,
distribute it.
somebody would need that. Okay, yeah, but I just figured that was a lead for, possible lead for somebody down here.
Yeah, I did look through it, and it's nice to know that these things are out there.
It took a lot of effort to even get that legislation passed for the food trust, and the fact that there was a lot of local interest and advocacy to get that money. It's the state funding money, so it'll be interesting to see even who gets funded this year, or coming up this period anyway, and then see from there what we might be able to learn and see who we know on the Cape. It doesn't necessarily have to be Harwich. Harwich could be a type of partner, but maybe not the applicant. But, so keep,
Yeah,
Keep our
we can put the
ears to it.
information out there.
Yeah.
That's kind of what we have the ability to do right now. Yeah,
Thank
Good.
you.
thanks. Anybody else have anything they want to bring up?
I just, excuse me, I just last week attended the MAHB presentation in Taunton, and one thing came up that I thought might possibly work here. They have an approved list of brochures or presentations that have been approved by the parent body on all different kinds of public health subjects. We were talking about this the other day, and since it's been approved, and they've been, still a wild copy, abridged, would it be interesting for us to consider publishing them locally?
I'll look at it. The Mass Clearinghouse also has some brochures and posters that they're free to local entities as well, that we can order and distribute to schools and things like that too. But I'll look at the MAHB one, and if there's some videos, I can give them to Jamie or Caleb over at Channel 18, and they're always looking for places to put things in. Did you have a question?
I had a comment, actually, but you haven't opened.
Oh, okay.
I'm just waiting for hand that.
Oh.
I think it might be nice to put some of the clearinghouse materials down in the town hall itself. It doesn't, not to be judgmental, because I haven't scoured every corner of the building, but it doesn't seem like we have a whole lot of health. We have a lot of things about regulations and flu and that kind of thing, but we don't seem to have things for more of a prevention and wellness theme, which is what we discussed at the last couple of meetings. So that might be of interest to look into what ones we might be able to put on a table or one of those
Yeah.
wall containers that we have on each floor.
And over at the community center as well.
Yep. Mhm.
My comment is that we had a discussion that, I think, 2 sessions ago on the board about training. You know, we go through, and Don and I started this discussion, and I'm trying to follow up with the committees here. Obviously, we have open meeting training that have to take ethics meeting training. But this But at least, certainly from my standpoint, I think we should look, and I wanted to get back to all the committees and say, what type of training would help you out? You know, we have, because each committee is different, and I think as a town, we should look at offering, I mean, Robert's Rules of Orders may be one, but each regulation, you know, things might help you do your job there, and see if we can get people either in or organize a course across towns, because, you know, you and conservation, planning, ZBA are very important. I mean, you control a huge effect on people's lives from that. And we have a lot of, you know, we have new people coming in all the time. And so I'd ask you, if you may, sometime when you have a chance, maybe think over what type of training, if we can find it, might be useful to you. And I can't prejudge that. And I want to go beyond just the open meeting and ethics, because, okay, that's important, but that's not really helping you do your job. And, you know, conservation, I'm no more familiar with it, and they have at least an annual meeting that we can go to and get some training. But I'd like to throw that out and have you, and ask you to consider that, talk it over and see what type of training should we be trying to go after.
I'm embarrassed to say that I've seen you at these meetings, but I don't know what position you're in.
I'm a selectman.
Oh, well, that is embarrassing. Okay. I think I saw you when you were running for office, but I think you had a little more formal look.
No, I was just hanging out here.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
He has nothing else to do on
Nothing else
a rainy
to
night.
do.
He's our
Yes,
Board of
Dr.
Selectmen
Lee.
liaison.
I'm the newest member of the board, and I feel strongly that there is a very large body of knowledge that's required of board members besides the ones you mentioned. For example, the knowledge of the Title V regulations, knowledge of the legal implications. That was most of the meeting in Taunton was about, was the legal implications of Board of Health meetings. And it would be unreasonable, I'm afraid, to ask people to do all this training before becoming a board member.
And I'm not asking that, I'm trying to pull them down.
But I really strongly believe that we should have a sort of, not exactly standardized, but moderately standardized area of expertise. Because all you people have a lot more expertise than I do, and I am trying to learn, but it's a lot of stuff, it really is. So I agree with what you said.
Plus, it's a great way to market these positions, and it's been very challenging for, it appears, most town committees to have full, completed board. So it's having the ability to market this as part of the job, that you will be trained. In addition, we had wonderful orientation by Paula. I came in under Paula, but still there's a lot that could be. But marketing as non-mandatory but helpful information for any potential person who's thinking about joining a committee or board, I think would be terrific.
And that's a good point, because I actually, I know bully is the wrong term. I strongly pushed a neighbor of mine to join the Conservation Commission, and that was, his concern was ignorance. And I kept saying, you know, you're a smart guy, they're gonna help you, and that, when I went on conservation, I ran on conservation, for instance, and it was very comfortable. I went into an experienced board. I've seen the reverse of that, where people have gone into an inexperienced board, and it was a disaster. But your point is, it would help recruit members if you can say that, you know, we want you, besides that, we're gonna offer you, we're not just dumping you in there, you know. And I like that point. I'm trying to get to them and write a letter and get it out too, but obviously you can't dictate what training could be, but I encourage you to maybe just think about it and come back and maybe we could put together, you know, across, there may be some issues that are shared across committees too.
Well, they
we
both,
can look at.
they boil
And
down
try to
to,
find some resources, either bring people in or, you know, use accounting, whatever.
they boil down into two major categories. One's engineering and the other one's law. And so, you know, it's not undoable, but I'm still just trying to catch up with all this stuff, because a lot of technical terms that I don't yet have fully comprehend. But it's all voluntary, see, that's the thing.
If you could do that and get back to me, I'd much appreciate it.
Sure. Any other old or unfinished business? I can go into my report then, in a few minutes. Shouldn't take long, it's fairly short this month. Still have a staff vacancy of the senior health agent position. We did have several applicants, all with great personalities, some with wonderful education backgrounds, but none of them had the experience and education combination that would really give me someone who could help day to day. The position is a senior health agent position, so it does require some previous work experience.
Nobody that you dare to let off the leash.
Yeah, no one yet, no. Hunter's doing great, he did apply. He's been in the position for about 3 months now, part-time. He's learning, he's doing well. In the report is a thank you letter from the tech school. They asked him to do a short presentation on HACCP plans for food service, and he did a great 45-minute presentation interaction with the kids, and he seems to enjoy the work. So I think in time he'd make a great senior health agent. I just need someone right now who knows Title V, and that's a big learning curve when you can go to school and have an engineering degree, but Title V is Title V. It's not something you learn in college. So
I'm acutely aware of that.
yes, yes. So I'm still looking. The ad was placed last week. Hopefully we'll get someone, but I'll keep you posted on that. Acela issues come and go. We did have some success with our renewals, our annual renewals. They did make a fix with that, so we're able to renew our licenses finally. We do have to do an added step of expiring the old one. It's still not doing that automatically, but hopefully that's still in the works. We've been back and forth with them with the online payment issue. It's still a problem. Working between accounting, Invoice Cloud, and Acela, they just don't seem to talk to each other and need a middleman. And we're still working on that one.
Do you have the impression from your colleagues in other towns that there's a deadline on this stuff?
No. It's the other towns that are having this problem are working around the problem just as we are. So it's out there as a problem, and it is still being worked on. But no, there's
nothing pushing the developer to correct the problem in a specific time frame.
no.
Let me tell you, I've been in the computer business. I've sold computers and I've sold operating systems, and I know this kind of company, and they can string you along for months, maybe
happening.
sometimes even years, just so you're warned, you know.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
It's already been months, right? Almost a year even, right?
It's been it's been a year. This happened a year ago. We fixed it, and then renewals came up again, and it's still happening. So it has
When I
been.
hear we're working on it, it makes me nervous.
Yeah.
Are there any, I don't know if we call them alternatives, but is there any kind of, to your point, any kind of guidance or any kind of encouragement or penalty or review of the contract to motivate them to make these changes? Because otherwise, we might be better off with the old system, right? Or no?
No, the old system is abandoned. It's actually been absorbed by Acela. Our old system was GOTMS, which was bought out by Acela. So going back wouldn't exactly be helpful.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Something else. Last month I went to the annual Mass Health Officers Association meeting. It was 2 days of training and education and seminars. We did hear from the state public health as well as DEP, and things are status quo, no big budget cuts or anything like that. They are working on the opioid crisis. That's one of their major tasks this year. They have a task force and lots of educational material that I've put links to. I want, within the next couple of months, I want to reach out to the health people, the health teachers, as well as the nurses at the schools, the youth counselors, just to see what they have in place right now for any kind of substance abuse programs, or if they have access to programs or need help finding things, because we sort of seem like a resource. We can't physically do anything, we can't provide any money, but maybe we can connect people with the right resources.
Well, maybe that would be good, if you hear of training that would be appropriate for us to go. They had 3 different presenters at the Democratic town meeting about, I'm gonna say 2 months ago, from 3 different programs, 2 of them in town. It was really very, very, very interesting to hear what's being done in town and where they see themselves going or what their needs are. So something like that, if it's available to other committees, kind of to your point, that might be something that we could participate in, because I found it very, and it wasn't long, it was only tops with all 3 of them, maybe an hour. But what they're doing with schools, what they're doing with senior, I mean, the whole bit,
Yeah.
very, very
Yeah, I'd like to know what
interesting.
our
Yeah.
community's doing, because
Yeah.
I don't know of anything firsthand.
Well, these were all from Harwich that spoke.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'd like to
Mhm.
get connected with them.
Dennis Police Department has taken major lead in this area. You know what they're doing? They're having surrounding towns come to a monthly meeting at the Dennis PD concerning urgent care for mostly people with mental illness who overdose.
Mhm.
And that's a fairly large, it's a small percentage, but it's a large number of people.
Mhm.
And they're also dealing with people who have domestic violence arrests who
Mhm.
are also overdosing.
Mm.
But there's still a huge reservoir of people that don't fit those criteria.
Yeah.
And nobody, as far as I know, nobody is dealing with them on a statutory basis. So we need to deal with them more on an educational basis.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make a comment about that senior health position. I commend you for not taking somebody that doesn't have the foundation that you need to make that next step to broaden your ability to handle what's coming. And although this guy sounds terrific, I bet with the new year you'll find people that I always say, I'm going to do something new coming first of the year, and I'm a little busy going to Christmas parties right now, but if you could wait it out, I think you'll see some action in January.
Yeah.
And that makes a lot of sense to not move quickly, because that position really has to be someone that you can put a wide load on that'll handle it and hit the ground running.
Yeah,
'Cause
that was my
it's-
thought too.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a
better
lot.
to have it filled by the right person than just have a person there to,
I agree.
and need a year for them to get up to speed.
Right, and taking that year takes my year as well, so I would be
And then-
physically
and then
doing
you-
both jobs for another year.
And then you risk the chance that they hit the lottery and move to Hawaii. and
Right,
do-
or get all
and go
trained
work
and then
in
go to
Hawaii.
a different town, or, so, yeah, I'm hopeful I'll find someone that meets my needs.
Yeah, I think an advertised ad and patience is you're on the right course there.
Thank you. Just 2 more things. I wanted to let you all know
It's,
of.
I think it's passing.
Oh, yeah, okay, I can finish later.
Okay, on to new business. The hearing on 11 Ocean Avenue.
Okay. All right, we have a hearing for 11 Ocean Avenue to consider a variance request to allow the following variances for work that has already been completed. Variances from 310 CMR 15.211, minimum setbacks, to allow the existing septic tank to be 6.2 feet from the existing foundation, where 10 feet is required, variance request of 3.8 feet. To allow the existing soil absorption system to be 13.5 feet from the existing foundation, where 20 feet is required, variance request of 6.5 feet.
Madam Chairman, I might, I think I will request that I be recused from a vote on this one. The reason being that I am a victim of ex post facto building costs. Previous owners have not done something or done something wrong, and the present owner being hit by a fine, and I don't know that I could be entirely objective in this.
Okay,
Is
okay,
that okay?
That's fine with me.
Okay.
yeah. Okay, I now open the meeting. Someone here to,
Ooh.
I know some of them are very low.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity to meet with you folks. My name's Tom Carlone. My wife and I purchased 11 Ocean Avenue almost exactly 1 year ago, December 9th. And as was alluded to by one of the board members, we purchased a home we were excited about. We've been coming to Harwich Port since the 1960s. Prior to purchasing the home, I had tried to do my due diligence and find out if there were any open permits or violations. During my visit with Town Hall, I was told that there were not. I received a septic inspection done by, I think, a reputable person locally. And I also have a letter from the town saying that the system poses no public health hazard, and that there was, all the things that are required in Massachusetts prior to the purchase of a home. Unfortunately, during the time when I went forward to get a permit to do renovation to the home, it was discovered, Megan had pointed out to me that there was a discrepancy between what the previous owner had wanted to do back in 2001 when they put a foundation under the house. Their builder provided a plan, I'd call it a sketch. A building permit was issued by the town of Harwich, and the foundation was installed, not in accordance with the plan, and it was inspected by the town on April 18th, 2001, and accepted by the town of Harwich. And it wasn't done in accordance with the plans. I met with the previous owner. She's still a neighbor of mine, a lovely lady, and asked what had happened, and she claimed she wasn't quite sure. But nevertheless, as Megan pointed out, the septic tank is closer than the 10 feet that it should be, and all the other issues associated with the variance. So this evening, I'm here to not tell you a long, sad story, but rather do something that should have been done 17 years ago, which is to apply for a variance to allow for slightly less distances than our standard in a Title V system. I went to check through the records, and I'm in the, as you probably know, Ocean Avenue is in the Grove, I guess it's called?
Campgrounds.
The campgrounds, affectionately. And I didn't, actually, I checked a lot of records. I did not come across a house that did not have a variance. Because it's such a very tight quarters, I think it's very difficult to get the appropriate distances that are requested in a Title V system. I can apologize for the previous owner. Muriel's a lovely lady. I don't know if she did this with any malice or her builder did it. I tried to reach out to him as well. I don't know if he's still around. Kinsella, I think his name is. I have all the records if anyone's interested in looking at them. But at any rate, it is what it is. Someone should have done this 17 years ago. It would have been more upfront and the right way to do it. My wife and I want to, get this done correctly and get it squared away. And so that's my long story of Christmas past, I guess. Any questions I can help elaborate upon?
I open the meeting to the public. Anyone wish to speak? Okay. I'm going to close the meeting and discussion with the board. Any discussion? Okay. Megan, your recommendation?
Well, it's a little complicated because it has been going on for 16 years now. This discrepancy happened in a foundation where the Board of Health would never have gone in and inspected a foundation, that we leave that to the building department. So at the time, the foundation was put in too close to the septic system. We weren't notified. Nobody thought to tell the health department that the foundation was put in differently. The complicated part is over the last 11 months, there have been building permits and zoning board approvals, planning board, zoning board approvals, because he has expanded the house. He's not only renovated, which triggered the review in the first place, but then there were future expansions. Had we approved a foundation variance, there would have been conditions placed on the property of no additional habitable space, no increase in square footage. So there's that problem, and then we approved building permits, and we gave a positive recommendation to the zoning board because the owners had said they were going to rectify the situation by pouring the foundation as it should have been. And now that that work has been done, instead they'd like to ask for a variance rather than correct it. So that's why I can't give a positive staff recommendation, because I do know that a fully compliant septic system is possible there.
The current system that's there is operating today with a house?
It is.
Does it pass inspection as an operating system?
It did pass a Title V inspection just last year.
And does it have the capacity for the number of bedrooms based on the house?
Yes, it does.
Even with the new addition?
Yes, the lot situated where the addition went off one side and the septic's on the other side. So the addition didn't impose anything new, wouldn't have required any new variances. So it's something that you probably would have approved had it gone through that way. The variance to what he's asking for now would not have been approved had it have been asked when it happened. But because of the time frame, that's why it's should it happen, should it not happen, and that's why that's your decision.
So this owner really is the last in the game of telephone over this past chain.
Yes, he's left
And
holding the
he's
bag
holding
right
the
now.
bag.
Yeah.
Well,
Yet,
Yeah.
his system that he owns is in compliant for bedrooms, and is operating, and should we grant him a variance, he would be compliant to do his next project? Is that, there's another project, or there's no project? He's just trying to get a clean bill of health.
He's trying to get a clean bill of health with us.
By granting him this variance, it would close the case on the whole matter, as
Yes.
opposed to rebuilding the foundation or altering the house.
The
to meet
foundation.
Okay, which is below the house.
Right, and the proposal to fix it was to build, this is what was supposed to have been done in 2001. This part of the house was supposed to be a crawl space. So they proposed to put the crawl space in and fill this with.
I remember this,
Yeah,
may
it's
I-
been going on 11 months.
yeah.
Yeah.
So why would we not vote for it, since
Megan can't
Because
recommend
it's,
it because it can be said, they can grant a no at the desk. So
What?
the only way it's here is because she technically can't grant it at the desk. It has to come before us to
No.
decide
It's
whether or
not in
not
code, yeah.
we grant him a clean bill of health, give him the variance, and close the case.
so why wouldn't we? So once again, so I'll ask us.
Do you
why
have
Well,
wouldn't we-
I'll make a motion that we grant him the variance,
Okay.
and then we put this behind him and us, and stipulate that there's no increase in habitable space, no increase in bedroom size in the future on this lot. That's my proposal.
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain. Not because I disagree, but because
Yeah.
I really didn't think I could be fair to them.
I hear ya. All those in favor?
All those in favor? Say
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Agreed.
All right. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Do you have
Happy
your green
holidays.
cards?
Sorry?
Green cards for your abutter notification?
The building inspector, Dick Stevens, he brought it back to the office with him today.
No, that's your building card, the mailing, when you mailed
green
your
cards.
letters to the abutters.
Right, I gave those to Jennifer when I came back with the application.
You gave us the mailings.
The little green tickets?
Those are the those are the receipts, not the signed. These are,
Correct, those are what correct.
you filled out a green card, though, when you sent them certified mail.
I did what I was told to do at the post office. Was there another part of a form that's supposed to be?
There was another card that went with these that you put people's addresses on.
Yeah,
so
they got stuck to
signed
the
it.
envelope.
Yep, they sign it, and it gets mailed back to you. You
I
received
have a
it.
mailbox, but I very rarely get mail, which makes me suspicious, but I can check with the postal department, because
Yeah.
I haven't received one. I expected to get things back. I check every day, and I didn't see a thing.
Yep, this is certified mail receipt, so you had to have, gotten those.
I
back.
gave him 11 Ocean Avenue. I've been there every day, and I see the postal carrier go by, and he waves, and
Yeah, we may need to hold his approval until we get those back to see that they were delivered.
I know from my interactions with the neighbors that they did get their letters. But I understand you need formal notification. Who would I check with, the postmaster?
You would. If you want to come in tomorrow and get copies, or I don't know if you kept copies, these tracking numbers.
I gave you guys everything.
Okay, if you
The
wanna
funny
come.
thing, that day, the Harwich post office computer system wasn't working, so they sent me to the one on the way to Chatham. I don't know if that's still in Harwich, but there was a young lady there who helped me.
We'll track it down.
Yeah, so if you want to come in, we can even email them to you, so you can,
So we just make it.
Scan them and shoot them over.
What do we
you
do?
can track the number.
I know one
Contingent
neighbor,
upon that, it's done.
Yeah.
I know that one neighbor, the gentleman who was kind enough to write a letter in support of my request, Peter, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, the letter was sent to his Hopkinton address, but he's in Harwich Port all the time, so he said that he was sure the letter was, probably tried to be delivered, but I don't know how that works. But I will go to the post office tomorrow and see what I can learn. Thank you very much, and happy holidays, I guess. Happy Hanukkah,
Yeah.
happy Merry Christmas. Take care.
Same to you. We go on to the next hearing.
Mr. Clark, David Clark from Clark Engineering asked if we could hear this last because he has a conflict and is not here at the moment. I said it's a possibility if we
Sure.
skip it
Yeah,
and move on.
sure.
Okay. So the next hearing is for 14 Rainbow Way to consider a variance to install a new Title V septic system prepared by Moran Engineering Associates LLC. Variances from 310 CMR 15.211, minimum setbacks to allow a proposed soil absorption system to be 5 feet from the property line where 10 is required. Variance request of 5 feet. To allow a proposed soil absorption system to be 13.1 feet from the cellar wall where 20 feet is required. Variance request of 6.9 feet. To allow a proposed septic tank and pump chamber to be 7.5 feet from the slab foundation where 10 feet is required. Variance of 2.5 feet. To allow a proposed sewer line to be 30 feet from the edge of the wetland, edge of pond where 50 feet is required. Variance request of 20 feet. To allow a proposed septic tank and pump chamber to be 35 and 40 feet from the edge of wetland/bog, edge of pond where 50 is required. Variance request of 15 and 10 feet. to allow a proposed soil absorption system to be 92 feet from the edge of the wetland and pond, where 100 feet is required, variance request of 8 feet.
We'll now open the meeting.
Thank you. For the record, Rick Judd, Moran Engineering. Behind me this evening are the new property owners of 14 Rainbow Way in attendance. The existing three-bedroom dwelling recently transferred title. As part of the transfer, there had been a subsurface sewage disposal inspection. It was deemed substandard, not compliant, and to be upgraded. So it was previously being serviced by a modified cesspool system. That is, it had a primary cesspool, went to a pump chamber. The pump chamber moved the liquid to a leach pit up in the front section of the yard, which is parallel to Rainbow Way. What we're proposing this evening is it's a home where the lower or walkout level is finished, and there is a bathroom in the basement. So we explored trying to reroute the plumbing to bring everything to the south or the forward section of the home, and that would have been, it was not initially feasible. So what we looked at in the alternative was trying to bring a tank around to the front yard, and we would have been just shy of 11 feet with the tank and pump chamber. So what we're seeing before us this evening is a proposed monolithic Roth tank and Roth pump chamber. They're monolithic septic tank and pump chamber in the backyard, and as the health director stated, we'll be looking for relief from the pond setback for the installation. We have erosion control measures in place. Going forward towards the driveway area, we're proposing a soil absorption system that would be pressure distribution is one of our requirements because we can't make the 100 feet from the pond, so we're getting greater separation distance to adjusted high groundwater, somewhat mitigating some of the phosphorus concerns when it comes to Title V. We have gone through Conservation Commission on 6 December, got an affirmative or a positive reaction to what we have spec'd out here. The erosion control barrier will maintain and be kept in place until we have vegetation in place on this particular project. That's probably the greatest concern if the project's done during the winter. The responsible party, whoever's hired, will come back and again, just make sure that the erosion is mitigated by revegetation during the spring if it goes off in the spring. And at this point, I'll take any questions that the board would like to direct on this project.
Any comments from the audience? Okay, I'll close the meeting.
Question about the durability of that particular material that you're using for the pump chamber and so on. How many years would that last?
I don't know that I'm qualified to answer that question, but they are polyethylene, and so they don't have the same concrete can become porous and potentially break down. So I would certainly expect the life expectancy to be superior than that of concrete.
All I need to know. Thank you.
Any other?
And the current system failed, right? Yeah, you said that.
It is a modified cesspool system, so although I don't recollect outside of the town, local regulation cesspools fail by default, I do believe there's an opportunity here where this may be in contact with seasonal high groundwater. Even by state standards, it probably would not have passed.
So this will be an upgrade.
In my personal opinion, it's a benefit. We're getting further away from the pond.
Right.
We're providing a much better separation distance to adjusted high groundwater, and under home rule with the pressure distribution, the mechanism for which to deploy the effluent is it's a better situation.
Not a lot of options.
There are not a lot of options. It actually makes it easier.
That is a tiny lot with a tiny house on it. And the bedrooms aren't changing, you're not going up?
There is no increase in flow. There's no increase in footprint at this time proposed.
Okay.
Your recommendation?
I believe the plan provides maximum feasible compliance, and it's a great improvement over what is currently there. recommend approval of the variances with conditions of restriction to 3 bedrooms, no increase in square footage or habitable space, variances and conditions to be recorded at the Registry of Deeds, and no garbage disposal.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Aye.
All in agreement?
Aye.
Aye.
The motion passed.
Madam Chair, thank you very much, board members.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Bring your tiny shovel.
Thank you. Cute.
So cute. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, the next hearing we have is for LLC, Main Street HP LLC Miller, 560A Route 28, to consider a request to install a new Title V septic system prepared by Moran Engineering LLC. Variances from 310 CMR 15.211, minimum setbacks to allow a proposed septic tank to be 5 feet and 5.5 feet from the property line where 10 feet is required. Variance request of 5 feet and 4.5 feet to allow a proposed soil absorption system to be 7 feet from the property line where 10 is required. Variance request of 3 feet. To allow a proposed septic tank to be 5.5 feet from the cellar wall where 10 is required. Variance request of 4.5 feet. To allow a soil absorption system to be 7 feet from the cellar wall where 20 is required. Variance request of 13 feet. No to 40 mil barrier is proposed. To allow a proposed septic tank to be 2 feet from the dry well where 10 is required. Variance request of 8 feet with a 40 mil barrier proposed. To allow a soil absorption system to be 10 feet and 14 feet from the dry well where 25 feet is required. Variance request of 15 feet and 11 feet. 40 mil barrier is proposed.
Good evening, Moran. Dan Crodel from Moran Engineering. I think what was said at the last hearing was perfect for this, and that there's not a lot of options on this property. The same owner owns 560A, which is right now currently the candy store, and 562, which is a art studio. Under state Title V, that common ownership of the two properties makes it one facility. Under their code, the two systems can go, or the two buildings can be tied to the same system without needing the criteria of what's called a shared system. If one of the properties is sold, then it would come back, then it would have certain restrictions put on the system as a shared system, as in under each deed there would have to be recorded that there would have to be a mechanism for having a septic tank pumped, and each owner would have the right to service this as a utility. The health director, Megan, and myself did go over Title V to make sure that the design was heading in the right direction there. So the system as is has the sewer coming from both 562 and 560A going to a septic tank. Under commercial requirements, the septic tank has to be 2-compartment, so it goes to a double compartment septic tank and then to a 6-inch stone leach field. And then the sideline setback variances and the setback variances to the building are unavoidable. There's another problem with these two properties, and it's that the roof drainage is during heavy rain flows off the roof and into the limited area. So as part of this project, we wanted to put in dry wells for these roof areas. putting in dry wells then creates that additional variance of a setback between a dry well and a septic system. So we're asking for those as well to solve the stormwater runoff problem. There's really no check on if the system was in the ground and then owners go back as part of a landscaping project and put dry wells in, there's really no enforcement method for that. But to have everything up front, we're designing it at the same time, so there is no missing component here. So with this, I will ask for questions on this.
How much distance is there between the base of the dry well and groundwater?
2 feet to high groundwater, so generally 3.5 feet. I think it was.
How does that compare with other installations in the area? Do you know?
That generally when there is a regulation written for dry wells, they want, it's either 1 or 2 feet to high groundwater, so it meets any code I've seen for a dry well.
So I have 2 questions. One of them is, with the permitting with 2 different owners and these conditions, does it make it more challenging to, when at some time in the future, one wants to sell and the whatever, does it make it more complicated?
It makes it, something would have to be written into the deed. If the 2 properties were separated, something would need to be written into the deed to cover it, as in like when something's condoed and they're on a common system. That way, one person, both have access to it, like with any utility, both could have it pumped or fixed. It certainly would come up, before someone was to buy it, you know, is it a reduction in the value of the property? Probably not. It's pretty minor easement needed. So I don't think so. I think that certainly in the town records for this, so like the earlier project where something came up and was missed during an inspection, I think it would certainly, when someone went to do this inspection as part of a real estate transfer, something needs to be completely clear in the town records, which I'm sure it would be as part of this variance, that the necessary paperwork at that time needs to be filled.
So we need to take care of that now, of writing that up.
Well, I think it would be written into the variance
Okay.
approval, so that it was, couldn't be missed.
So my second question is very different. As a dietitian, it really concerned me about talking about the retail food part of it and the arrangements to make sure that the utensils and all are clean. And I don't know if it's appropriate to discuss that now, but I think it's, maybe that's not you, but it made me somewhat concerned about food safety on what the current arrangements are.
I think that we're designing on actually what the use of these buildings has been. I think that there is going to be a discussion. Megan and myself had talked about this at pretty good length as to how the business is run and meeting the food, needing the permit for working with food on this property, as to what is actual just retail and what is processing of food. And I think that was going to be a topic discussed later tonight.
It's on the agenda later.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
And the owner of that business certainly knows that he has to come before the board at some point for the for his food service permit.
Good, yeah.
But he knows that the conversation is going on.
Good, because it's pretty blatant,
That it's
unsanitary situation here.
supposedly, I mean, there were there was stuff put into place, as in everybody had to use gloves when they touched anything, and so there was some stuff that the previous health director had put into place when the candy shop was the shed behind the kite shop. It's the same owner, and then he moved it to the front, and thinking he was just moving a business from one place to another and not understanding how it all
We can
works.
discuss that in the next hearing, but I just want to go on record as saying that with my background and training, I would be very concerned about this if things weren't turned around, but we can do that in the next part of the hearing.
Right, I think that the previous health director had some type of system in place where, and I know that everybody touching the candy had to use disposable gloves, and I think that was a big part of it, but I know
Yeah, but
that-
it was also not
I
just
know there
about
isn't.
touching stuff, but about how the equipment was handled and taking it over to the hot stove. And, I mean, that was just, we'll talk about it at the next
Unusual.
hearing. This is very, it seemed very inappropriate to me.
Right, and I think that's
Any comments from the audience? I'm going to close the hearing. Discussion of the board.
None?
Does somebody want to make a,
Do we get an opinion of the health director yet?
oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Thank you. Keeps my back
I
on.
know. I recommend approval of the variances with the following conditions. Should the two parcels have separate ownership in the future, both owners must comply with 310 CMR 15.290 shared systems. No increase in square footage or flow allowed to the system. Variances and conditions to be recorded at the Registry of Deeds, and that no garbage disposals are installed.
Somebody'd like to make a motion?
I'd make a motion that we accept the recommendation of the health inspector based on the conditions she just laid out.
Second?
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed.
right. Thank you.
Candy for everyone. Thanks, Dan. And do you have another piece of business, Dan, or is this it for tonight?
That's it for me.
Good. Thank you.
George.
Happy holidays.
Are you the Grangers?
I am I'm Evelyn Granger,
Okay.
and David Clark said he was going to be running late. Were you aware of that? Okay.
Yep, I'm just wondering if you want to hear this without representative from the engineer, or if the homeowners will,
Yeah, because we can always table it if there's something that,
Yeah.
if it's
Okay.
not
Yeah.
going well for them.
okay,
And this is not my husband.
okay.
This is, well,
I'm Steve Postanzer. I'm the,
We'll make sure the
I'll
TV
be the
knows that.
builder on it.
so close enough, right?
Okay.
Not really, but that's all right.
So we might as well do the last hearing, 21 Uncle Vini's Road, to consider a request to install a new tight tank prepared by Clark Engineering LLC, variances from 310 CMR 15.211 minimum setbacks to allow a proposed tight tank to be 15 feet from the top of coastal bank where 50 feet is required, variance request of 35 feet. If you'd like, I can do the little spiel that the engineer would normally do.
Okay.
That would be helpful.
Okay.
That would be very helpful.
The property is currently served by a 2,000-gallon tight tank, which was approved years ago for a two-bedroom house. The proposal is to keep a two-bedroom house, no increase in footprint, no increase in flow. They would like to swap out the 2,000-gallon tank for a 5,000-gallon tank, which would save them
A lot of hauling.
hauling costs. Filling up a 2,000-gallon tight tank can happen in less than a week. So they would like to extend the use, so the pump truck isn't there every week.
Sure.
Go find them.
The tight tank, existing tight tank was 15 feet away from the edge of wetland. The proposed tight tank, even though it's larger, it is turned a little bit, so it, again, is only 15 feet away from the wetland. They're not increasing or encroaching any farther than they currently are with the 2,000-gallon tank. I don't think that a larger tight tank is any detriment to the environment.
It's tight tank.
It's a tight tank. There are measurements in place to make sure it's maintained. There's a proposed contract from Clark Engineering for when it's installed to make sure it's watertight, to have a maintenance contract on it, and have a pumping contract on it. So those three things are in place to make sure that, number one, all of the plumbing is going to the tight tank and not to a random pipe somewhere. And also that the tight tank is a tight tank and not leaking. It will have alarms in it to alarm when it's at 3/4 capacity, to know you've got a day or two to get a pump truck there, or else you're gonna have some issues. And then they should have they'll be required to have a hauling contract. So they have someone contracted to come out on a day's notice.
How do you detect if such a tank should leak?
They do two things. This company recommends an air test where they use air to fill the tank for pressure and see if it loses pressure. And then another way is the old-fashioned way of putting it in the ground, waiting 24 hours to see if water comes in.
Yeah, but how about if it's 10 years old, 5 years old? Do they test it then again?
They don't, but the operation and maintenance agreement, someone is going out and looking at it once a year, and the hauling company is going out and looking at it.
Neither of those people would know if there was a leak.
They would, because they have to look at their water meter readings. So they're gonna compare how much they're pumping to how much water they're using. So if they're using 1,000 gallons and they're only pumping 200 gallons, they know the water's going somewhere.
That's a big leak. How about a little bitty leak that might not show up in such a discrepancy?
I don't think there's a way to do that with any tank, really. It would just be if this is closed down or no one uses it for a month or two at a time, and then they open up again and the tank's low, they would know that way.
And who monitors the contract people going out once a year? How do they know that happens?
They submit the contract to us.
Oh.
So we have a log of it to make sure it comes in once a year. And also, we will refer this to the county, Barnstable County, who does IA technology monitoring. So they have a person dedicated to contracts, and they have a list of what's needed when, on what property, where, and if someone's due, they'll email the town and say, do you have this? We don't have it. We got to do something about it.
And if they change companies, that kind of a process is in place too?
Same thing.
Oh.
Yep. They have to submit a new contract.
Huh?
There's a chain to it.
Yeah, that's good. It's news to me. Something we just learned.
Well, there's one thing in favor of this, even if it should leak, and that is that the drainage is into a swamp, not directly into the ocean. That swamp sinks anyway.
It does?
It sure does.
No.
Or it used to. I
I
believe-
tell that.
They just put in a new culvert, so I think it drains much better than it used to, so maybe it doesn't stink now. But the point is that draining of effluent from the tank into the ocean would be one problem. And draining it into a swamp, which is already, well, it's got a lot of dead animals, just to put it mildly, would be less of a public health hazard.
So I recommend the approval of the variances with the following conditions: that the dwelling be restricted to a maximum of 2 bedrooms, that there be no increase in square footage or habitable space beyond what has been proposed, variances and conditions to be recorded at the Registry of Deeds, no garbage disposal, a valid contract with a septic hauler is required to be on file prior to the release of the permit to install the tank. A septic hauler contract is required for the life of the tank. Previous variance conditions from DEP and Board of Health shall remain in effect, and the tank shall undergo a 24-hour water test prior to use to ensure watertight test.
I need to close the hearing, correct?
You haven't done that yet, right?
Hmm?
You haven't done that yet.
Right. I'm going to close the hearing. Now we can discuss it. Okay.
I have no questions.
I don't have any email.
What's that?
Somebody,
I just want to mention, we don't have these green cards yet either because they are probably with Dave Clark, but you can approve pending the receipt.
pending, okay.
I'll make a motion that we approve this pending the receipt of those cards from the lawyer? Oh, engineer, okay.
I'd second that.
Wait a minute, did we actually get a, did you make a motion on what she suggested?
Yeah, oh, sorry, yeah, that we accept what director's recommendations are, including pending approval, getting those cards from the engineer.
Second?
I'll second that.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed.
Good luck. Thanks.
Don't worry about this thing, I'm pretty sure it's better now.
Oh, my God.
Comes and
Doesn't
goes.
think it's that bad, right?
The view is worth
When we used
it.
to go down there, it was awful for years and years. They finally did something about
Well, I never noticed it.
He's supposed to be encouraging her to
So
stay in
it's not a
Harwich.
voter issue.
it.
I never noticed it
I
either.
think it's also worse as you get up towards Deep Hole Road, as you get the down end of it, rather.
Get into
than
my
toward the
neighborhood.
ocean.
Yeah,
Well, anyway.
It's a great location.
great, thank
Yes,
you
it
very
is.
much, we're looking forward to it.
Yeah, you have a lot of fun there.
Yeah,
It's
thank
a
you.
nice beach.
Have a great holiday, guys, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
There's just one thing of correspondence that I wanted to bring to your attention from the Department of Public Health on the invasive meningococcal cases at the UMass Amherst. There were a couple of confirmed cases of meningitis there, type B, and we've been monitoring the situation. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention in case you heard anything about it.
The old precaution used to be to give everybody in the school sulfa.
Oh,
That was
Dude,
still
what? I didn't hear
effective,
that.
but I
What?
guess they have something better now. Probably
Sulfur?
Sulfa drugs, yeah.
Oh.
It used to work pretty well for meningococcal.
well, there is a vaccine, and the state had to provide it to some pediatricians.
It takes weeks to
Yeah.
get to,
And where was
have
this
effect.
in?
UMass Amherst.
Yeah.
They give them antibiotics of any kind?
I don't know. I know they've been referred to their pediatricians.
And so there, UMass is doing the research? Is that
UMass is
it?
vaccinating all the students.
Oh, ho, ho.
The
Even,
whole
even down here on the
32,000
Cape?
of them. they
Even
said.
down here on the Cape?
No, out at UMass Amherst. It's
Right.
just that
Oh, I
campus.
get, okay.
They were referred to their pediatricians first, but then the pediatricians couldn't get the vaccine, so the state had
I
to
get it.
provide it.
Okay, I wouldn't understand that, okay, interesting.
Vaccinate every single, it's a good move to get out front of it quick like that.
Yeah,
thought.
I haven't heard anything else
That's
Because,
about it.
That spreads pretty quick,
That's
right,
a
Doc?
Yeah.
Class A health hazard.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
The plague, especially since they're all kissing, drinking beers together,
Yeah.
and who knows what
Mhm,
else.
and who knows what else.
Silly
TMI,
kids.
TMI.
Next, we have a list of permits from, dated December 12th for your approval and vote.
I'll make a motion to accept the permits.
Second? All in favor?
Wait a minute. Is the candy shop on here?
No.
Okay. When's that coming up? Okay, well, I will agree. And then when are we discussing the sanitation of the, is that coming up next or?
Next, yeah.
Okay.
All right, I want to give you some background on Dr. Cavities.
Did we agree to the permits?
All in
No.
favor? I thought
Aye.
I said that, I'm sorry. I must have thought it.
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Thank you. Dr. Cavities was first installed behind Dr. Gravity's kite shop in 2013. Mr. Hurst is the owner of Dr. Gravity's. I'm gonna get the kite shop. And he had a shed in the back of the property, and he thought it was a great idea to open up a candy shop. He did so without permits, without any sort of discussion with the health department. So this was 4.5 years ago. It was penny candy, it was wrapped, all in jars. We limited him to wrapped candy because he didn't have any sinks or any way to wash anything. He went in.
He's in the retail business, and I was in the food retail business as well as
Yes.
the kite retail business.
Yes.
And he doesn't even know there's two different businesses.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So we went through the whole thing in 2013 that food is food and you need to call the health department in order to sell it. You need to meet food
Candy is
code. Candy is food. We went through a business plan and said, okay, you can have a very limited amount of unwrapped candy. He insisted that was the only way he was going to get business, is if he had unwrapped penny candy for the kids to take and put in bags and things like that. So what we allowed was a couple of shelves behind the counter, monitored by the clerk, with scoops of unwrapped candy that the clerk would do. So the kids weren't taking the candy out. So that's what we approved for the behind the kite shop
In the shed.
retail in the shed.
Yep.
This year,
So Swedish fish in a scoop by an employee with gloves on, putting it into bags and handing it to the kids.
yes,
Okey
and
doke.
the containers that the unwrapped candy was in, he had a stock of at least 10 spares at a time, that if they did get dirty, he would discard the dirty one, start fresh with a new container.
You're talking visibly here.
Or we told him, if somebody sneezes on it, if somebody goes in and touches it, that's when you need to change, that's dirty.
If you could see them,
That's why they were behind the counter. So he did have an agreement to have those washed at a commercial kitchen, bagged and brought back. So we agreed that that was, you could do that for your limited amount of 5 or 6 jars behind the counter.
Yep.
This year, we got his renewal paperwork, and on it, he had a new address. And he moved into this new place on the main street. Never came in to say, hey, I'm moving, is this okay? And compound that with the building he moved into, transferred without a Title V inspection, so,
Free spirits here.
yeah. So we didn't know if what he wanted to do in that new building could be allowed with the size of the septic system. We didn't know what was there, we had no file. We assumed it was a cesspool, but they said, no, there's a system there. So we never did get an inspection report. We never issued his 2017 food service permit. All year long, he operated no permit, because we can't approve a new business in a new part, in a new location.
And even no Title V inspection report submitted.
And the other complication is Mr. Hurst, who's the owner of the candy business, doesn't own the building. So Mr. Miller is the owner of the building, who has bought a few properties on Main Street, 128.
So Dr. Gravity does not own Dr. Cavity's building. It's owned by somebody else. Okay.
Right.
Just in case.
So he's a tenant
He's a tenant, right,
in the building.
in the building.
and this is the septic
Okay.
system we just approved.
We just
right?
approved, yes.
Right.
So we pushed him along, get the system inspected,
Any system.
any system. Found out it was a cesspool, go forward, push, get the system put in. You're operating on a cesspool. We would never have allowed this had you come forward to begin with, but instead you went forward and put the cart before the horse, really. So now we have a septic system that is only large enough for retail, no food service. And that system needed variances. So that system isn't even large enough, the property isn't large enough to support a retail system. There's a difference between retail and food service. Retail, all wrapped food, no bare hand contact with ready-to-eat food, no slicing, no
A wrapped candy bar, period.
a wrapped candy bar. bottled water, things like that,
Yep.
that don't, you know, you go to,
That's retail food.
yeah, you go to CVS.
So the system that they installed is big enough to do that.
Yes,
It's
yes.
not big enough to do a
Fudge
Swedish
and
fish
river.
scoop
Correct.
business.
Right, and the, and
Okay.
the, and the
Candy and fudge.
unwrapped candy
Okay.
and fudge, yes. So, there's no in-between in Title V of unwrapped candy and fudge and a sit-down restaurant. It's 1,000-gallon minimum. There's no way that this candy shop uses 1,000 gallons of water a day. So what they are looking for is what will the board allow? Will we allow the installation of a 3-bay sink so they can actually properly wash everything? And put a limit on how many jars that you're gonna allow them to have? Should we just flat out say no? Your system isn't large enough, this location isn't proper for what you wanna do?
Was the, okay, I've answered my own question. Sorry.
So basically, this type of behavior, which has gone on for quite a while, without any...
Condoned.
It appears to be condoned, but it hasn't been.
No, it was condoned when they allowed that guy to
Have wrap stuff.
sell the Swedish fish out of the shed.
Yes,
Condoned at that point.
we allowed a few jars
Yep.
to be sold unwrapped in the shed. There are many more than a few.
I was gonna say,
No.
he just seems like he's really pushing,
It's a
what he's doing what he wants to do, period.
Not
Whatever.
necessarily. He was called out on it. Then he reached an agreement to wash the jars
Across
in
the
a commercial
street.
kitchen, which is an agreement.
Mhm.
So he's been in compliance. He's just transferred it into a new venue,
That he didn't get approval on before I moved in there.
But it's many more
but
items
he had a
now.
pre-existing business lawfully run with a license that we gave him.
Right.
So he's just moved it to another location.
Which isn't lawful without a permit or some kind of application. So
Right.
he's
It's
pushing
one thing
the-
to come out of the sky and open up a store, but it's another thing to have an existing store. It's right next door to each other. You know? I can see him thinking he's done nothing wrong.
That is his defense. I've met with him a couple of times, and he said he honestly didn't think
no-
we did anything different than we were doing before.
Because in
needs
essence,
that
he certainly
training.
hasn't, other than he's added a few more options. The kids cannot reach into the,
No, they can now.
oh, now they can.
Now the kids can access, the
That's
public can
problem.
access it.
That's the problem.
Let me tell you, you're never gonna find me in this place. I just think that he has, the thing is, I'm not recommending it be closed or something that's severe, but this guy is really doing what he thinks he wants, or he's modifying it enough that he's changing things and not getting additional approvals. So it's very, from not knowing at all, this does not seem like a very truthful transactions.
I think what's important this time around is that things are transparent to him as to what he can and can't do, and it's written out in the form of an order. We had an agreement with him that was not put into black and white. And I think that that's important with whatever decision we make is,
Good
this is
idea.
what you can do, this is the number of containers you can have, you can't go over 10 gallon to 20 gallons a day of water. They're going to be coming back to us with a proposal. So I just wanted to know, what are you looking for? What are you leaning towards? Is it worth them to even try?
There are several technical questions that need to be answered before we say anything. For one thing, the word wash has no significance medically. I mean, you can run water into a jar, pour it out and call it washing.
Mhm.
And so we need to know, there are three things we need to know. One, what's the origin of the unwrapped candy?
Mhm.
How is it transported to the facility, and how is it handled when it's received?
Yeah, stored.
And who handles it? The second question is, how is the candy dispensed? Is it put in a paper sack, or is it put in some kind of a box, like a fudge box, you know? Because those boxes are far from clean, and so are the bags.
They're jars, right?
They,
I didn't go today, I wish I had.
If you were to do a culture on the inside of some of those bags, you'd be astounded to see what grows out of them. Fortunately, though, most kids that take unwrapped candy don't get sick. But as you probably know, Halloween, most adults now will tell their children, do not accept any unwrapped candy, you know, because of danger. Not only pollution, but also mischief. So I think we need to know several facts about how the unwrapped candy is dealt with at every stage. Where does it come from? How do you know it was clean when it arrived, and so on.
Right.
And then I have much less concern about the number of jars if they're all from the same supplier as I have from the method of handling. And we need to know what they mean by wash.
I was gonna say, I'd like to hear the contract with Hot Stove or whomever. Is it a regular contract, like say all jars are washed once a month or something like that? And I would like to see some kind of inspection, like they're inspected more frequently than usual. Like maybe they get inspected for a year or 2 years every 6 months or something of that nature, so that we know on all these elements that they are complying.
Well, it's a seasonal business.
Oh, it's closed now?
Yeah.
It closes at the end of the year. He's
It's
open
only
still.
open for the summer.
Oh.
So there's two ways to look at this. There's two ways that we have to look at it, is the septic system and the food service business. Is the septic system adequate to handle his washing? And washing, the food code dictates washing. It's not just washing, it's wash, rinse, and sanitize. That would be part of a business plan that I would look over. So it's not just rinsing out a container with a couple gallons of water, it's,
So there is already a statement for that.
there's already a law for that. So right now, he does not have a sink in this place.
So he needs a 3-bay sink.
Needs a 3-bay sink.
What do you
Should-
mean by sanitize? That have to be put in a sterile,
At 3 bays,
autoclave or something?
it goes
No,
through
it's-
3 bays in a restaurant to eventually get it cleaned and
But
sanitized.
sanitize really literally means germ-free.
They use a chlorine or ammonia or iodine, quatrammonia.
What's the 3 sinks?
What you wash the debris off the
One's soap and
container,
water.
soap and water,
The second one
clean
is-
water to rinse the soap off, and then finally you sanitize. You fill a bay up with water with a 50 to 100 parts per million
Like
bleach solution.
Yeah.
Dip it in, 10
then let it
seconds,
dry.
air dry.
And everybody
why-
does that? All restaurants do that?
All restaurants
That's cool,
do
unless they have a dishwasher, obviously.
Right.
Well, that's
Oh, that's
acceptable.
cool.
That's how you wash
That's good.
pots in a restaurant.
Yeah,
It's a
good.
3-bay
As
sink.
long as that's part of the agreement, that
Yeah.
would be okay.
That would be okay for him to operate if he had a compliant septic system.
He doesn't have the septic system to run its 3-bay sink. That's his issue.
So that's why we need to, if we're okay with allowing him to do that inside, if he puts in the 3-bay sink, the septic system only allows for so many gallons a day.
And that's why you have a number.
That's why we have to say, okay, sure, you can do this, but you can't have more than 10 jars. And they have to be washed weekly, or more frequently if they are empty. Every time they're empty, but no less than once a week.
But doesn't it compress since he's only open for 10 weeks?
He's still open.
No, I mean, like-
He opens in May through December.
So it really only takes 3 months off?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're already approved, we just need your green cards.
Thank you very much.
Thank
I
you.
apologize. I think you go through the agenda that fast.
Thank Megan.
I was surprised too.
Good
I
presentation.
was surprised.
Excellent job.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you, thank you.
The only other thing I would mention, and once again, is the chain of handling here. Because a lot of things can be introduced into penny candy before he ever sees it.
Yes,
does,
it's part of most business.
I mean, you never see penny candy stores anymore. I'm thinking the one in Chatham, downtown
Candy Manor.
Chatham, they have those scoops and kids fill up things there. How is that regulated, do you know?
They probably have a fully compliant septic system,
Right,
and then they have people, employees watching.
right.
What Mr. Hurst has offered is, instead of scoops, so one less thing to wash, is that when you're grabbing a candy, you have to put on a glove. So
Oh,
you're
God.
grabbing with a glove. I said, I don't know if that's gonna be okay.
Every little kid has to put a glove on?
And then you have to
about it.
change your glove for every
Yeah,
jar
exactly.
you're sticking your hand
Oh,
in.
yeah.
That's just not gonna happen.
Especially with food allergies, with nuts and the
Mhm.
like,
Mhm.
gluten.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's not gonna work.
It's just not feasible.
Oh,
So that's gonna be coming before you, so to have some thought on it, and,
you don't have to decide tonight?
no, it's not an agenda item, he's not here, I told him not to come because I really just wanted you all to kinda kick it around before, because there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
It's the septic system size, it's the food service side.
And I think, maybe you don't discuss it with them this age, but definitely because of his history of moving ahead without
Approvals.
approval, I think we need to have a closer monitoring system on him, on his business, not him, his business.
Well, I think
Okay.
He's been a good, like, business his business is 50 years old, maybe? He's
Yeah.
been selling kites.
Yeah, he's
So
been
he's
around.
He plays by the rules, or he wouldn't be there that long.
Well,
But
for
I think
kites he
this-
does, well, candy's different, the food service is so different.
Absolutely,
yeah.
I think it's morphed into more than he knew about.
And I think it's,
Now, I think he's bitten off more than he can chew,
So to speak.
so to speak.
yeah, and I think it would be good for him, kind of a way for him to see how important it is and how, and the gravity of it by coming to a meeting and being told by the Board of Health, this isn't just penny candy anymore, you know, that we're talking about.
Yeah. And maybe, kind of like what you brought up earlier in the gentleman who's on the selectman, Larry, encouraging someone like this in the future that's considering this is to go to one of the food safety trainings. Because it's really very innocent stuff, like nuts and gluten, and when you have open containers and the whole 9 yards, that are something that the average person doesn't think about.
Right.
Yeah,
Why
there's
would
a-
they?
There's a ton of pitfalls and liability
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
whole thing.
Yeah.
Is he required to have that?
He's required to have an allergen certification. So the state puts on a 30-minute video on allergens, the top 8 allergens, and goes over labeling requirements. And then there's a certificate you get at the end.
And also how to use it in every tin.
I'm leaning
I
towards
know.
some more of, along the lines of not having the kids pick the candy, but an employee
Yeah.
picking, like, just employee,
Mhm.
and then employee running the cash register, 2 different people. One
And at that point,
takes
why
the
bother?
cash,
Just
and
have
one-
wrapped.
Mm.
Well, I mean, I think there's good margin in that unwrapped business,
Maybe.
a lot of selection, and it's kind of
Yeah, there's
exciting.
something
to
fun
see-
about
Yeah, oh, I
to say,
agree.
I want 3 of those, 4 of those, 6 of those, I mean, it's a
It's a thing, okay. Yeah.
And besides which, you know, it's a lot easier to keep track of a scoop than it is a box of gloves, latex gloves. Because you don't know how many of those latex gloves were bought and how many of them were used.
I think
If
since he's,
somebody could put those gloves on in the morning and take them off in
Yes.
the evening and not even, no one would notice.
I've seen that.
yeah, where he's gonna need a variance on a few things, we'll have to think that through.
Yeah.
If we granted it all.
Yeah, but I think it's good in one, for him to anticipate what this means. So you don't want to knock him out or close the shop, but I think he needs to know it's more than just the water, but these are the things that people who are in food service are expected to do and have to agree to and have to, and so it's not only for him about the water, but that there are other things, and is this worth it to him? Money-wise
Yeah.
or
Okay.
work-wise?
Yeah, I think he's there right now.
Yeah.
Up to speed that it's not as simple as it seems.
Yeah, no.
All right, I'll get back
Okay.
to him that we talked about it, and we'll get
We'll get
a
back
list
to
of
that.
variances that he's gonna need and bring it back to you.
Yeah, for the plan,
Yeah,
that would work.
right, with some
Well, we do
operating
have-
procedures.
Well, winter.
We do
And
have a
I-
few months, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, there's something to be said about how it was okay when the little kids weren't putting their hands in there, and who knows where.
And then the last thing I wanted to give you a heads up on is you may have heard the rumblings about Saquatucket Harbor and there being a proposal for a restaurant on the property. It came back and forth. The environmental impact review that you all looked at in July included a 50-seat takeout restaurant. So that's 20 gallons per day per seat, 1,000-gallon septic system. What they want to do now is remove the food service from the town septic system and just put in the town buildings, harbor master, the workshop garage, the bathrooms for the slips, and have that go to the septic system. And then allow for an outside bidder, an outside company, private company, to request proposals to put in either a 60-seat sit-down restaurant or a 100-seat sit-down restaurant. And they would pay for the building of the restaurant as well as the building and installation of the associated septic system.
Now, who's they?
Whoever bids for it.
No, not that, but when you say they asked if we did, who's the oversight of this? Not the Board of Health, is it?
No, there's a committee.
There's a committee, Matthew Hart and John Rendon from the Harbor, and there's a Saquatucket Landside Committee. And some of them are pushing for a restaurant, some of them aren't, and they just want to know what the possibilities are. So it will have to come back before you because you approved the 50-seat takeout restaurant. A 60-seat full-service restaurant is almost double, is more than double.
There was no variances when we approved that 50, it fit there, believe it or not.
It fit there, no variances, and the environmental impact statement showed good nitrogen numbers,
Right.
around 5 parts per million.
Because
They-
it's on the water, it's like a filter.
No, because they approved, they used a large FAST system, an IA
Oh, okay.
technology to remove
It was a
25.
pressure dose system?
Yep, pressure
Okay.
dose system. It had the higher end technology on it.
Yeah. Now, do you think that they could double that in size to do and takeout it's paper, right?
Takeout was paper, so it was only 1,000 gallons a day.
Yeah. So
And
now they're
then with the
gonna-
100 seats, sit down, it's 3,500 gallons a day. So the septic system
That's
is,
100.
It's a monster system.
it's twice the size of what they are putting in for the rest of the
Sure,
property.
Rex loves that too.
Yeah.
So our question is, can it physically fit on the lot? If it can, does the environmental impact statement meet your approval for an expanded use of a site? So we'd be looking at nitrogen loading and making sure that they're putting in an IA system as well and removing a certain amount of nitrogen to meet the numbers, to be close to what you had already approved at 5 or 6 parts per million.
This is a stupid question, but why, when they got approved for the smaller takeout, what's the driver to have a larger independent? Is it strictly money, or is it making money for the town, or is it making money for individuals, or what is it?
So it's not making money for the town. The proposal that I heard was that an independent company would come, pay for the construction of the building, of the restaurant, would supply it with equipment, and then in 30 years, the town would own it. And over that 30 years, they would pay the town $5,000 a year or something.
So there's income
There's
generated for
income.
the town.
There is, and then there's the meals tax
Oh.
on that. And private restaurants have come to the town, have come to selectmen and the landslide side committee saying, a 50-seat restaurant isn't viable, a 60-seat restaurant maybe would break even. In order for us to financially benefit from a restaurant, we need 100 seats. So that's coming from the restaurant world experts, so they want to know, is it possible?
That was the same issue that they
It's so
had at-
funny because you end up with no parking for the
I was gonna
guys
say,
that are there to vote.
or even the restaurant
100
maybe.
seats, that will have 70 cars.
They're at the planning board tonight
Wow.
to discuss parking.
Yeah,
Well, that
that's a
whole thing
major
came up
problem.
For the golf course restaurant.
Because there's no parking now
They claimed they couldn't have
between the ferry service
seats.
and the other
And so they
thing.
went out of business.
Yeah, the golf course, they only wanted to pay for a certain size,
Yeah.
and then that limited the amount of seats. And
They
they,
didn't go out of business. They did?
No.
well, they've
Thomas
turned,
Stone?
no, he's still there.
He's still there.
He's still
Okay.
there, yeah.
So basically, it's, in one way, if the town can make money, which is good, because we're limited, and have another restaurant, but isn't it weird that they pick side by side? But then again, places like P-Town and the like are all up and down the street. But it just, I think that's a fabulous point that you have about the parking, because it's already tight for people doing the ferry and people at Brax, the overflow goes in. So how is that all gonna be handled? Well, anyway, we don't have to solve it tonight.
No, and parking really isn't our bag anyway. They're going to
It's more
planning board.
sanitation.
I can tell you
Yes.
that that
planning.
restaurant that was there before, the Harwich Board of Health and Pizza, was a mob of people all the time. So there's no question about demand, if they serve pizza and it's any good.
Yeah, how many pizza places can the town support?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll see.
All right.
The rest of your report, or are you done?
That was done. I just wanted to bring up the meningitis case.
Sounds,
That was it.
sounds like that would require town meeting. No, for that.
Yeah, it will.
So that,
It will.
we're talking years in advance.
Yeah, they'll need board's approval before it gets to the town meeting, so
Well, they're
it'll come
smart
to you.
to do
The
it
whole
ahead of time.
project's underway right now. They're ripping down the old harbor master
Yeah, I
building
know.
this week.
Well, I knew that, but that's not the restaurant. That's a
That's-
different,
that's
right? I mean, that was approved. This isn't.
Any snack bar,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Are the same people who were gonna build a 50-seat snack bar involved with this?
No, we didn't have anyone specific interested in the snack shack. It was just a concept, as far as I know.
Do we know who's interested in the restaurant?
I was told that there are two parties interested, and one of them is the owner of the Wellfleet Pearl, and one of them is the 400 East.
There you go.
Oh,
So places that have a good track record
Yeah.
running
the
large
third one
restaurants.
Yep.
huh.
400 East already lost a restaurant, the 400. They sold
Yeah.
that, so why would they be starting up a new one? No.
They sold the
Location,
400?
location, location.
Yeah.
One
they
that
got
was
one
down
with
where
that.
they
No
have
competition.
Do you want to, somebody want to
I would make a
make a
motion.
motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion we adjourn and we see each other next year.
Well, second?
See you next year.
Oh, yeah. We won't see it till next year.
Second?
Second? Second? Second?
Wow. Yep, second.
All in favor? Good.
Aye.
My husband's birthday.